Very good afternoon, friends. Today, I have made a small video on this consultation paper of NAFRA. This is the abridged text of consultation paper which was released in September 2021 on statutory audit and auditing standards for micro, small and medium companies. Purpose of this PPT is to spread awareness about sending comments by 10th of November 2021. It has already been mentioned in the consultation paper that the comments should be submitted in writing either by email at the email ID given or by post also. So you can give them physically also by registered post. Disclaimer. This video is made only for educational purposes. So now let us briefly go through the abridged text. First of all, they've given an executive summary and list of questions to the respondents. They've described about the functions of NAFRA, which are enshrined under section 132, subsection 2, subsection A of the Companies Act. So one of the primary functions of NAFRA is to make a recommendation to central government on the formulation and laying down of accounting and auditing policies and standards for adoption by companies or class of companies or their auditors. Naturally, members are an interested party because it seeks to restrict some of the professional opportunities. So the first question which the members could send as comment may be regarding the scope of NAFRA. What is covered and what is not covered. It further says that the regulatory environment is conducive to support and not burden the growth in business and economic activities of these entities, and the overall regulatory framework should be proportional to the size and type of the entities that are subject to such regulation. So it talks of support, growth, and not burden in business. And naturally, business includes profession. So we are also covered as professionals in business. And if our economic entities are restricted, if our business and profession or professional opportunities are affected, then definitely we also should be given an opportunity of being heard that is already given by way of giving comments. So that is why this video assumes all the more important that we must give our comments. Next is this consultation paper is based on a preliminary analysis on the key financial parameters of the companies registered in India which have made MCA 21 filings. And those MCA 21 filings also have been taken for the financial year 18-19. Because, and the reasoning given is that 19-20 might be affected due to pandemic, filings might have been impacted. And so we have taken 18-19. So that raises another question. Why this hurry? We should have waited for 19-20 filings also. And the focus of the analysis is companies with net worth below 250 crores. This 250 crores net worth is another area which requires deliberation at the end of the professionals. And these companies are referred to as micro, small and medium companies. So they've coined another term, micro, small and medium companies. And they say in the consultation paper also that different regulations define small and medium companies differently depending upon rupees 250, depending upon the criteria. 250 crore are a critical threshold differentiating AS and NDS companies. So the basic premise of this consultation paper and different approaches towards companies with the net worth of 250 crores and above and lower needs to be deliberated and discussed and commented upon by the fraternity at large. The consultation paper says that a large proportion of these MSMCs are likely to belong to micro, small, and medium sized enterprises. So they are making a comparison with MSME. The criteria which is given in MSME is different. Now, whether this Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises Act or whether that ministry was consulted before adopting and coining this another term, MSMC, is another area which requires introspection. NAFRA now it says NAFRA now seeks stakeholders' responses. Definitely, they are inviting responses to these 4 questions. So, first of all, is regarding the criteria, whether this criteria is okay, 250 crores, or you want another criteria, and you have to reply both ways, whether you are for or against this. Second question is whether there is a requirement for separate set of auditing standards for MSMCs as it exists for accounting standards. If no, why not? And if yes, what should be the basis for the same? So basically, it is a sort of discussion paper. Consultation and discussion might stand on a different footing, and that is another point which we must introspect as a professional. The third question is the cost of conducting an audit as per the prescribed standards is an important input for the responses to question number 1 and 2. So do you agree with this approach for estimating standard cost of audit? Now, whether estimating standard cost is within the area of NAFRA, that is another question. If not, which areas assumptions need changes? And question number 4 is whether the current exemption thresholds for CARO, ICFR, and statutory audit, they need to be standardized and made uniform. If no, why not? And if yes, what would be the criteria and thresholds? Before moving further, we would like to go to the basic functions of NAFRA. Functions of NAFRA are to make recommendation to central government on the formulation and laying down of accounting and auditing policies and standards for adoption by companies or class of companies or their auditors. Now, whether all these questions, whether all these changes, whether they pertain to formulation and laying down of accounting and auditing policies and standards for adoption, that is another question for all the professionals to introspect. Naturally, NAFRA is inviting comments on these 4 questions, and it is our wondrous responsibility as a responsible professional to must give our comments by the last date mentioned, 10th of November 2021, and comments can be given either on email or through post also. A brief about NAFRA. NAFRA was constituted as an independent regulator. So there is another regulator. We have ICAI as our regulator, and it is an independent regulator for accounting and auditing. So it is at par with ICAI. In India, in October 2018, NAFRA's charter positions it as an organization that should be known for objectivity, integrity, impartiality, independence, fairness, and transparency. And in making any recommendations, NFRA attempts to keep in mind the implications of such recommendations on the ease of doing business. Now, this doing business, this activity of doing business, whether it should be restricted to the business community only, or whether there should be ease of doing business for professional brothers and sisters also, that is another area we must introspect, because our constitution guarantees freedom of trade and business to all. And whether such recommendations, although they are at recommendatory stage only, it is basically a consultation paper. But still, since our comments are invited, we must introspect on all these lines. And section 132, subsection 2, subsection A of the Companies Act requires NAFRA to make recommendations to the central government on the formulation and laying down of accounting and auditing policies and standards for adoption by companies or class of companies or their auditors, as the case may be. Naturally, it is well within the powers of NAFRA to formulate and lay down accounting and auditing policies. Now, whether these four questions or whether these recommendations are covered within the definition of formulation and laying down of accounting and auditing policies, another question. Or then it talks of audit requirements in present Indian company law, that company law requires the chartered accountants to undertake audits. It makes a reference to chapter 10, audit and auditors, section 139 to 148. This is basically more or less a reproduction of the Companies Act. It says that section 139 to section 148 of Companies Act 2013 contain provisions related to audit of financial statements of companies. So this chapter includes provisions inter alia regarding appointment, resignation, removal, rights and duties of the statutory auditors. The requirement of statutory audit is mandatory for all companies. This word all is important. As of now, the requirement of statutory audit is mandatory for all companies without any exception. Now, whether this curtailment, whether it will result in ease of doing business for professionals, we must introspect. 139.1, it prescribes that every company shall appoint an individual or a firm as an auditor who shall hold office from the conclusion of its 6th annual general meeting and thereafter till the conclusion of every 6th meeting. Probably talks of 5 years appointment. The manner and procedure for selection of auditors by the members shall be as prescribed, and the matter relating to such appointment for ratification by members at every annual general meeting. Then it talks of section 143.2, which casts a duty on the auditor to make a report to the members of the company, about which we all are aware. The auditor is making a report on the accounts examined by him and on every financial statement which are required by or under the Act. Then it talks of section 143.3, which casts some additional reporting requirements on the auditor. And it talks of regarding internal financial controls with reference to financial statements. 143.11 is another section which empowers the central government in consultation with NAFRA to specify, wide and order certain matters to be included in the auditor's report. Accordingly, Caro mentions there. 143.9, it talks of auditing standards. It requires that every auditor should comply with auditing standards. Then 143.10, it states that the central government may prescribe the standards of auditing or any addendum thereto as recommended by the Institute of Chartered Accountants. As of date, then it says that there is a single set of auditing standards issued by ICAI, which is applicable for all types of companies, namely private or public or large, medium or small. Accounting requirement in present Indian company law. Section 128 to 138. There is a requirement for maintenance of books of accounts regarding true and fair view in 129.1 and 129.2, requiring the board of directors to lay at every annual general meeting the financial statements. About all these things, we are all very much aware. 129.3, it talks of requiring a company which has one or more subsidiaries to prepare a consolidated financial statements. And section 2, subsection 40 of the Companies Act, it says the financial statement in relation to a company should include a balance sheet, profit and loss account, cash flow statement, statement of changes in equity, and any explanatory note. Then it talks of accounting standards applicable in India. Section 133 of the Companies Act. And it says that currently there are 2 sets of accounting standards notified in India. Ind AS and IFRS based, and AS, which are traditional accounting standards. And then it says that every company other than a company to which Indian accounting standards as notified under company's Indian accounting standard rules are applicable shall comply with the accounting standards notified under company's accounting standard rules. So it talks of two types of accounting standards, Ind AS and AS. Then it talks of company's accounting standard rules 2021, which defines small and medium sized company whose equity or debt are not listed or not in the process. So any company which is either not listed or not in the process of listing, which is not a bank, financial institution. So it exempts certain classes of companies from certain types of accounting standards. And it says that such companies are eligible for some minimum exemptions from accounting standards. Then it talks of financial reporting and general purpose financial reporting, GPFR. So financial reporting generally means supply of financial information about an entity or reporting unit to the users or stakeholders who could be an internal party or external party. In case of the former, it is commonly referred to as the management reporting. And in case of latter, it is known as external financial reporting. The more widely used and understood term is general purpose financial reporting or general purpose financial statements. And the objective of these general purpose financial statements is to provide financial information about the reporting entity that is useful to existing and potential investors, lenders, and other creditors in making decisions relating to providing resources to the entity. And these decisions involve decisions about buying, selling, or holding equity and debt instruments, providing or settling loans and other forms of credit, or exercising right to vote on or otherwise influence management actions that affect the use of the entity's economic resources. So what it emphasizes is that the general purpose financial statements, they contain financial information that is useful and relevant to a wide set of external parties such as regulators, tax authorities, suppliers, employees, and public at large. However, in recent times, the accounting standard setting bodies whose standards form the primary basis for preparing general purpose financial statements have consciously decided that the primary users of GPFS, general purpose financial statement, will be only those listed above in this paragraph. What need emphasis is that both primary users and the information needs for the kind of decisions detailed above are not likely to be found in a preponderant majority of micro, small, and medium companies, which they are referring to. So what they say is that particular set of companies, they do not need such type of information, or this is what is the general intent. Now, which type of company or which type of user needs which type of information? That is another important area. Because on one hand, in many of the acts, even in tax audit report, there is reference to compliance with other laws. So on one hand, you are expecting us to comply with the other laws also, other than the financial laws. And here you are restricting the scope based on the users of the financial statements, based on the ultimate use. So it says, therefore, both accounting and auditing standards and the requirement of mandatory statutory audit as applicable to other, that is non-MSMEs or large companies, would be both unnecessary and unjustified on cost benefit consideration. Now, this word itself is very, we can say, debatable, unnecessary and unjustified. So how can we say that the information which we are giving is unnecessary and unjustified on cost to benefit? Cost for whom and benefit for whom? Because we are also an interested party. If we are doing an audit, it is a business or a profession for us. So how can you curtail our right? That is another area. Now regarding contents and characteristics of general purpose financial statements. So they say that balance sheet, it provides information about entities' economic resources. Then this financial performance or statement of comprehensive income. It depicts information about changes in entity resources and claims due to transactions. Cash flows, it reflects the changes in entities' cash flows and notes to financial statements. They say they enhance the value of that financial information. Now, they have evolved certain parameters, certain qualitative characteristics of useful financial information. So, fundamental qualitative characteristics are relevance, materiality, faithful presentation. And enhancing qualitative characteristics are comparability, verifiability, and timeliness and understandability. These two aspects have been considered as two of the 7 alignment principles to be considered in developing the IFRS for MSME standards. The providers as well as the users, they incur costs in generating and consuming the financial information supplied. The benefits of the financial information provided should justify the cost incurred by both the provider and user. Cost is considered to be a persuasive constraint in the financial information that can be provided through general purpose financial statements. Cost is therefore a critical aspect to consider for justifying the nature, complexity, and extent of financial information that is required to be provided by the general purpose financial statements. Then it looks at certain statistics based on the statistics published by MCA regarding total number of active companies, then how much are private limited. So this is all information, and it says that the private limited companies are more in number. One-person companies and private companies and unlisted companies are more in number as compared to listed or public companies. NAFRA has done some research also on micro, small, medium companies, and preliminary findings are that the key data parameters regarding payment to auditors, turnover, net worth, and indebtedness of companies. So they have primarily divided the companies into 2 categories with net worth below 250 crores and net worth 250 crores and above. So it intends to analyze to understand the nature and size of such companies and the related public interest involved. So basic emphasis is that what is the nature of public interest involved if you are not a listed entity, if no public funds are involved. So, and the payment to auditors, that has also been compared with the estimated standard cost of audit for a reasonable good quality audit. Now this good quality audit itself is a derogatory remark for us professionals. How can you say whether audit is of good quality or bad quality? Further, the auditing requirements in India's tax laws and the exemptions from the statutory audit requirement as existing in developed economies is provided in this consultation paper. So they made a comparison with other countries also, with the costs involved, with the stakeholders involved, and this critical analysis says that out of the total number of companies that filed annual financial statements for the financial year 18-19, as I already told you, the comparison is for the financial year 18-19 because they feel that due to pandemic for the financial year 19-20, many of the financial statements might not have been filed. And they say they have analyzed the various key features regarding payment to auditors. Some of the companies have reported nil payments, and they say it might be due to data input error also. And then they say that a large majority of companies have reported small amounts. On the one hand, you are saying that you are either not making any payment towards audit fees, or the audit fees is very small, and then you are talking of cost, that cost is high. So how these two things could correlate could be anybody's question. And we as a professional have got a right to write in comments that how this incongruence in these two statements. On the one hand, you are saying that you are paying very small amounts, and on the other hand, you are saying that you want to decrease the cost. And then they say extremely small amounts below 5,000 and estimated standard cost to perform a reasonable good quality audit. Now, this good quality audit is another question. In compliance with the letter and spirit of the SAs for micro, small, medium companies with turnover below 50 crores is in the range of rupees 1.5 lakhs to rupees 8.43 lakhs. So this standard costing also has crept into this consultation paper. So what is the basis of arriving at this figure of 1.5 lakhs to 8.43 lakhs? Whether it is based on some objective criteria, whether it is based on the payments we are making to the PSUs, what is the basis? Naturally, we have got a right to question this thing. Naturally, they must be having their own working for this, but naturally, since we are a concerned party, we have got a right to question this. And this estimated audit cost, they say, is several multiples higher as compared to the presently reported audit fees ranges. That is a very large percentage of MSMCs have reported payment to auditors of less than 20. So what they say is, you are charging less, you should charge more. Regarding turnover also, they say most of the companies are either in nil turnover or very low turnover. Indebtedness also is significant, have got either they are either debt free or they have got very low debts. Regarding net worth size also, there are companies with positive net worth, and most of the companies, they've got very low net worth. So this is naturally the analysis of companies below 250 crores turnover. And then they summarize to say that the above analysis clearly brings out that a preponderant majority of these companies is very small in size in terms of key financial parameters. So they are saying that these are very small companies and payment is also minuscule. When payment is minuscule, how can you intend to reduce cost? Could be anybody's question. And far below the minimum standard audit fees. And what is the basis of the standard audit fees? That also needs deliberation and discussion. Then they say the users of such financial statement, general purpose financial statements are limited. And then they talk of auditing thresholds already available in Indian tax laws, that turnover, that income tax audit limit has also been enhanced now regarding provided not more than 5% of the total transactions are in cash. This is another debatable issue because there might be many companies in whose case the cash transactions could be much more than 5%. Ours is not an online business country. If you are comparing, you have to compare like with the like. If you are comparing India with a country where very just a fraction of the transactions are in cash, then you need to rework your figures. Definitely that there is a limit of turnover up to 10 crores provided not more than 5%, but naturally there are transactions much more than 5% in Indian business community. Then it says that GST audit has been completely done away with. In view of the above, the extent of public interest involved in the financial reporting of these companies is most likely to be minimal. So they saying भाई ऑडिट भी खत्म हो गया, जीएसटी ऑडिट भी खत्म हो गया, पब्लिक का तो इंटरेस्ट इन कंपनीज में है नहीं, ऑडिटर को कुछ मिल नहीं रहा, तो क्यों नहीं इसको ऑडिट को ही बंद कर दो. Now it talks of reporting on CARO and ICFR. And then it talks of, it makes comparison with global jurisdictions also. What is the criteria world over? Then it says that world over, the criteria is something that the audit obligation is minimized. And the directives of European Union says that small undertakings should not be covered by the audit obligation. And audit can be a significant administrative burden. Now, you are saying it is a significant administrative burden for that category of companies. And on the other hand, your research says that the audit fees is very minuscule. So how these two things could correlate? And it also says that in many small undertakings, the same person are both shareholders and managers and therefore have limited need for third-party assurance. But in cases, suppose you do away with this audit, then if you require an audit for a bank loan, then you will require separate consultations. Even RBI could be an interested party in such a consultation paper because they definitely have their lending norms, and lending norms normally stipulate audit. Then for some companies you will be doing audit, for some it will create more confusion than any cost cutting. In the end, I would like to say that we as professionals have got a wondrous responsibility to naturally rise to the occasion and give our comments on this consultation paper, the last date for which is 10th of November 2021. We must go through all these things. It is very important. And I have an objection to the word sham also. It has used the word sham. That audit is being carried out is perhaps only a sham. So how can you call an audit as a sham? In my opinion, if I have done the audit of a company and you call it as a sham, then it is something which should not be accepted by our professional brothers. Anyway, so first of all, I would like to thank you for your valuable time. I would like to request you to go through deeply through this paper, and you must comment. Naturally, the institute will be giving its presentation. The institute will be definitely in dialogue with the NAFRA, but it is inviting comments from public also, as I suppose. So we must give our comments and must rise to the occasion. And again, I would like to say that the purpose of this video is to spread awareness about our rights, which our Constitution grants to all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you again.